The feudal system is a system that's not unique to medieval Europe, but is certainly associated with this period in time where, on a localized level, we have to go and address how to live. And the feudal system goes and does a fairly, I don't want to say good job of it, but it addresses the issues of how to organize politically and economically during this time. So let's back up and see kind of what happened after Charlemagne dies. Well, after Charlemagne dies, it goes to his son Louis the Pious, and the reason why he's known as Louis the Pious is he's known as being more religious than a good political leader. So he goes to church, which is good, but he's a bad political leader. Then after Louis the Pious dies, his three sons, Charlemagne's three grandsons, go and fight for power. That's Lothar, Louis the German, and Charles the Bald. They go and they fight for a couple years, and in 843, you need to know the Treaty of Verdun. And what this treaty does is it divides up the land, and I'll show you on this next slide, the map between the different guys. Divides up the land among the three different grandsons. The height of the Carolingian dynasty, though, is really reached under Charlemagne. These three grandsons, they're fighting, they're bickering like these three bozos over here. So there's rivalry between them. It's difficult to administer this region. There's not necessarily a tradition of having unified rule, in a sense. So you can see the modern-day countries, okay, big guess right here, right? Germany, essentially, and then France, and then Lorraine, right? The area between the two that they're fighting over goes to Lothar. Now, feudalism, what was it? It was a system of political relationships. Now, when you think about relationships, the way I like to think about it is, what does somebody get, and what do you give? You give something, you get something. And there's, in any person, even if it's not equal, you might not give the exact same amount you get, but it's a form of relationships that work. So, for example, you have a king, and he has all his land, and he has to go and divide up his land, because he can't rule it all. He can't go and just, it's a huge amount of land. How's he going to go do this? So he goes and says to some people, hey, if you provide me loyalty, maybe a little bit of money, I'll give you my land, and you can basically run it. That would be known as a lord. Sometimes the pieces of land are so large that the lord has to go and even divide it to people that we will call vassals. An oath of basically a vassal to a lord or a lord to a king saying, I will be supporting you, is called an oath of fealty, which goes and says, I'll support you, I'm going to go and provide the level of political and economic support that is necessary. What a vassal is essentially going to give to a lord, or a lord will give to a king, is troops, military troops. Usually these troops aren't even that good. Sometimes they can be trained knights, but most of the times they're just farmers that they get in the event of warfare. And what they get is a piece of land known as a fief. The place where they live is called the manor. And when you talk about manorialism, it's kind of a subset of feudalism, meaning it goes along with it. They're kind of synonymous, but they're not exactly the same. The way you think about it is feudalism tends to be more political in the way it's used, but manorialism tends to be more economic. There we go, economic. So manorialism is the system of economic organization. If you're, for example, a peasant, what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to the mill to grind grain, and you have to pay to do that. You don't own the mill, so you have to go do that, and then pay a certain percentage of your crops will go to your lord. And everybody knows that the king basically owns everything. Okay, here's the first grade picture. Makes the Middle Ages look like it was a cool place to live. I can tell you 1,000 reasons why it wasn't probably the best. Just give you the lifespan, wasn't that long. But, okay, it's a little idealized, but, you got the castle. It may or may not be a castle, but the lord's probably protected. The serfs' houses, the church, the mill where you grind the grain. And then here's the manor. Right, here's the lord's manor house, and then my favorite, right, the graveyard right next to the gallows. If the field's fallow, that means they're not planting it. And then, you have the different fields, etc., etc. Now, the way this pyramid kind of works is at the top, you have the monarch. By the way, you can make the argument it was the church really at the top. In a sense, yes, depending upon the period. But we're talking more like political organization. Then the nobles, the knights and vassals, and then before them, it makes sense. Below them, it makes sense, right? Merchants, maybe have a semi-skilled, a blacksmith, something like that. Farmers, both of them are peasants, and then a certain type of peasant who are called serfs. These are basically equivalent to slaves to the land. Like if you were born a serf, you were born a slave to this area, you have kids, they're going to be tied to this area as well. And they're slave peasants, they're slave farmers, is exactly what a serf is. And to round it out here, you can just, like I said, manorialism is an economic system, feudalism is a political system. You could go and take a look here. This is like what each person gives up and what they get. So let's look at the king versus vassal, or a lord, depending, you know. A vassal is going to provide loyalty and military aid, but the king gives a fief and peasants. And you can take a pause here and kind of look. So the way to think about feudalism is what do you get and what do you give?